So last time it felt like we were doing for loops to death. Of course, that's actually not the only loop in C++. So today's episode, we're going to get a little bit deeper into it and also answer that question, can we write that for loop without anything in the parentheses? Hi there, I'm Roy and welcome to My Code Corner, where we take a hands-on approach in topics in computer science and technology. And if this is stuff that you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and join this nice growing community. Now let's talk about for loops. And of course, how we're going to do that, let's jump into the compiler. Now, of course, I did mention for loops. There's actually going to be other loops we're going to talk about today, but I did want to refresh for those that hadn't, since there was a little bit of a gap between my two videos. Here's your standard for loop. Of course, you have your declaring your variable, that's going to be basically your counter. There's your Boolean operation, checking that counter, and of course your incrementer or something that's going to change that counter. And of course, if I hit run real quick, we know this one's going to count out 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, simply because we know x is going to be less than 5. And since x starts at 0, we'll count up to 5 and then quits out because this statement goes false. Now we also know, as I mentioned before, we can start taking some of these pieces out. I'll take this one away, and I'm going to go ahead and actually, since we still need, mess up my own cut and paste, but since we still need the x, we still need a counter, we're going to actually put this one outside the loop. And of course, if I hit that run again, you'll see it's going to do the exact same thing. Of course, now that this one's outside, it means that basically anything we do inside this loop will fall outside of it. I also mentioned that we can take this piece away, this x++. Since we're using x down here, why don't we just use the plus plus down here and get rid of this piece? And of course, hit my run. Let's see what happens. And we know what's going to happen. 0 to 4, just like before. Nothing new. Now, the one piece I was teasing is what happens if we take this one? And I'm going to go ahead and take it away. Actually, let me cut it here. And I am going to comment it up here because I want to make sure I don't forget what this one is, because unlike the initializer, this was put up here. Unlike the incrementer, that was put down here. This one, there's nowhere where it goes. So what happens? Does this compile? Well, actually, surprisingly, yes. And if I hit run, this may actually surprise you. So here we go. And of course, this is what you call an infinite loop. Whenever you don't have that center, get rid of that. Of course, you can just hit X or Control C to kill that, because that will run forever. That's why they actually jokingly call it a do while more electricity loop. But when it comes to these for loops, if you do not have the Boolean operation in the middle, it will return true. So in this case, it's going to run forever. Well, how do you get out of a loop if you have an infinite loop? And of course, this is going to be a case that will be in multiple types of loops. We're going to focus on it right here. And I'll tell you that the interesting thing is the way you get out of an infinite loop, an infinite for, when you don't have this Boolean operator in the middle, we've already done before. If you remember before, and I'm actually going to comment this out because when we test this, we don't want an infinite loop stop us from what we're doing. But if you remember what we did before, you might remember this. Let's see out. So you remember the switch statement. And one of the things about a switch statement is, of course, this one we're gonna look at the x, and we know x is 0, so it's going to take this first case. But in this case, if I hit run, it just prints hi there. And the reason it prints hi there is there was nothing to stop me from going to my default. And again, if you remember, how do you do that? You have this nice little statement called break. This will break you out of the switch statement. Well, that's not the only use of a break statement. So break will break you out of the switch statement. Just to prove it real quick, hit run real quick. It should just say hi, and that's all it does. But it will also break you out of a loop. And I'm not going to just say a for loop because we're going to talk other loops, but any loop, break will also get you out of that. So we're going to head and I'm going to comment this out here, and I'm going to take this because I love having a ton of commented code in my code. And so what do I want to do? I want to come up with a way to implement that break statement. And of course, if you think about it, up here, it's a Boolean operation. What's good? What's a way to check a Boolean operation? To execute basically a flow based on a Boolean operation. And if you are saying, what about an if statement? Ding, 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 you're right. So in this one, I'm going to say if, set up our structure first. And all we're going to do is break. We want something that's going to make this code break. But what do we put in here? Now, if you think about it, can we put if x is less than 5? Well, if I put that there, let's go ahead and hit run and see what happens. And it only occurs one time. And why does that happen? Actually, because of we're trying to do this logic, this is defaulting to true. So this being true means as long as x is less than 5, it's going to do this break. It's going to execute this this fork. So really, what we want to do is say as long as it's basically false. So basically flipping the paren, changing this, that we want this one to be false more than anything, so that when it's true, that's when it executes the break. So again, up here, when this is true, continue on. When this turns false, sorry, gotta think about how I want to say it. Yes, when this is true, execute a round in the loop. When this turns false, fall out of it. So this is honestly, this if statement is opposite than what the for is doing. So really, if you take what was inside those two parens, that operator, just flip the logic. And if I hit run, this should do exactly what we want it to. It should look exactly like. Actually, it didn't. And why? And I wanted to catch you on that one because if you think about it, we are executing this statement before we do the break. If I did, well, what I really want to do is set this to 4. So if it's greater than 4, so basically when this hits 5, this will go break. So in a way, if you think about it, this last one was a 5. So that 5, whenever x was greater than was 5, that's when it would break out. So if I hit run here, it should do exactly what we said, 0 to 4. Now, do you do this like this very often? No, not really. Really, the only thing I was wanting to show you is when you want to break out of a loop, that's what the break statement is for. And there's going to be other loops that we're going to talk about that this actually matters a little bit more than what's going on here. Just want to show you, yes, there is a way we can actually have nothing inside that for loop. I think, honestly, in 35 years, I have not seen that setup probably more than a handful of times. But that's it. So that now completes the mathematical completion of for, where we removed the initializer, we removed the thing that changes the value, and now we removed the Boolean operation, put it inside. Can we do anything more with the for? Next video, you'll see something else. But we're kind of done with fors for here. But if you think about it, when you're talking a for loop, the main thing that I think about, at least whenever I talk for loops, is that this is a counter. And it's going to do a number of times going through. Yes, we can control it a little bit more with a break statement. But this one, if it's not just incrementing or decrementing a value and checking that value, and even with the one I'm going to show you next week, the it's still iterating through something. You kind of know what how many you're going to go through. It's just going to be iterating through values. But there's times where you'll have a loop, and while all loops iterate, that's kind of the nature of a loop. But there's times that you actually might have a loop that will just run waiting for a condition to happen. And there's actually two of those. And the reason I'm going to mention them both is they're kind of the same thing. There is one small difference between the two. Syntactically, they're almost the same even. So that's why I want to group them together and show you what those are. And of course, that one, we'll start with the first one. A lot of times, and you might have actually heard me even mention it whenever I said that when I called this infinite loop a do while more electricity. Well, actually, that is one of the two loops, the do while. There's actually two of those loops. There is the while loop and the do while loop. And again, they do exact same thing with one small difference. Now, let me go ahead and show you the syntax of a while loop, which is pretty straightforward. Nice keyword of while. You will have a Boolean operation here. And it doesn't necessarily, understand, whenever I say Boolean operation, it's simply you're checking a Boolean. And so as long as this is true, it will conduct whatever's in your code block. That's it for a while loop. Matter of fact, if I copy this, I'm going to change, I'm not going to say for loop, I'm going to say while loop. And if I say while x is less than 5, notice it's the same as here. What's going to happen here? Let's go ahead and find out. Hit run. And of course, it's not going to do anything. Because, actually, why is it? I'm trying to check what's going on, because x is already 5. Note to self, always when you're going to do some of these demos, make sure you reset your values back to what you want them to be, because you'll throw you off every single time. So go ahead and reset x back to 0. This point, I should see, yes, while loop 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Threw me out for a second there. Always check your work. Always make sure that you know your value before you walk into it, especially when you're demoing and trying to record on stream. But notice it's doing the exact same thing that for loop did. But that's because x is less than 5. It starts at 0, which is less than 5, which is true. All you're doing is checking. There is no initialization here. There is nothing here. It's just checking for this value. So I could honestly just put true here. And of course, what's going to happen when I put true here? And you probably already screaming at me, telling me the answer, because I can hear all of you screaming. Yes, we have our while loop, infinite loop. And can we use that break statement before just like this? Let's go ahead and cut and paste this. And if I hit run, will this fix it? Of course, that's yeah, it does fix it. Sorry, I'm running two monitors. I always forget that all my outputs on the other monitor. All I did was cut and paste what was here to here, utilizing the same break. Of course, again, the break statement will break you from a loop. But that's it for a while statement. But what? Sometimes I just want to since we're dealing with Booleans here, I can actually just give it a Boolean value. Couldn't do that in the for, but I can do this here. Terrible name, but whatever. And instead of this break statement where I'm breaking out, I can just reset this value since, obviously this is defined outside. I can just reset that loop value from a true to a false inside my loop itself. And this is actually very common, where you'll be doing stuff in your loop, and finally when something goes on that basically means I can now escape my loop, you just set your whatever your loop conditional was, so that turns into false and off you go. And if I hit run, this will actually look exactly like the others. There's that 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're good. And I've probably beat while loop to death. It's a very, very simple. It's honestly extremely simple. And it's so simple that this is going to make my next one even easier, because again, I mentioned the while loop. The other one, and this is the one that when I talked about infinite loops and jokingly called it the do while more electricity, well, that's because you have your do while loop. And your do while loop can actually be, and actually I'm gonna make this look just like my while. I'm gonna take all this code in my while and put it in my do while. I'm gonna actually just rename this do while. And the reason being is I want to try to emphasize that a while loop and a do while loop syntactically is a little bit different. There is one major difference that we're going to cover here in a second. But other than that, it's exactly the same. And if I hit run here, and you're going to see the while loop happens once. Actually, I did it to myself again. I did not read that note to myself. When you're doing something, make sure to always reset your variable so you know what you're doing. And the reason I knew is that it popped off that 5 really fast, because I knew, this one, when it got to 5, it fell out here. It carried that X through, and then it checked that and fell out, and actually showed the little secret that I'm going to show you here in a second. But let's just verify it works. And of course it doesn't. Oh, two things that you have to do. Remember, I reset because loop true was true. It set it to false here. Well, we have more than one value we have to reset. And hopefully you caught that faster than I did, because I'm trying to do this a little quicker, because I know my videos have been a little bit long, these tutorials. I'm trying to get them a little bit shorter. But now that I've reset the values to be exactly what they were up here, let's make sure this works. There, not making a fool out of me anymore. So there's my while loop, went 0 to 4. Then I reset both of my variables back to their original values, and my do while was 0 to 4. Again, they're exactly the same as long as you have the same inputs. Note to self that I will ignore once again. But there was one thing, since syntactically they're different, and you notice that the difference was the while starts this loop, the while loop. It ends the while loop, but it starts with a do, because you need a keyword that basically says this is a loop. You can't put that at the end to just have a block here, because then it just looks like a block of code. So the while and the do while, the location of the while is in a different place. And why is that an important factor? Well, I'm going to write the most boring while loop and do while loop you will ever see. So I'm just going to say while false and spell it properly. And I'm going to say C out in while endl. And then I'm going to just copy and paste this one since it's basically the same thing. And I'm going to take this while. And you notice the other thing is that there is a semicolon after the while, whereas when you're just doing the while, there is no semicolon because that line that's in the block is the end of the statements, whereas here it's not. So we have a while false, cout in while. Do cout and do while false. Other than what's in the cout, they look at basically the exact same. And of course, what does it mean whenever it's false? It means this is going to fall out. As soon as that while is evaluated, it's going to fall out. Well, what happens? Go ahead and hit run. And if you notice, you see it does say in do while, but it does not say in while. And why? That's actually the key part of the key difference between a while and a do while. In a while, it evaluates it first and then performs whatever in the code block. In a do while, it will first do what's in the code block and then evaluate. So a while statement at minimum will be looped through 0 times. A do while at minimum, what's in that code block will be done once. That's really the only difference. So if it's something that you have to do or you don't have to do at all, use a while. If it's something that you need that to loop through at least one time, you do a do while. That's the only difference between the two, other than syntax. So hopefully that was clear. And I checked my notes, make sure I covered everything, and I did. So what are we going to do? So one of the things I am going to do from this point on in every one of my tutorial videos is that, especially now that you've gotten into writing some code. And again, I'm going to try to do these videos a little bit shorter. But what I'm going to do is I am going to give you a challenge problem every single time. And give you basically 5 days is between whenever I release this, because I'm going to try to release these every Monday, and then on every Friday I am going to put up a short that is going to be a solution. Now understand, when I say a solution, there's a potential that there's more than one way of doing it, and the important thing is, try it, and then whenever the solution comes out, check out what I do. And if you should come up with the same answer. You might not be the same way of doing it, but you still should come up with the same answer. So that's my plan, is again, every Monday I'm going to release one of these tutorials, at least fingers crossed I will. And then every Friday I'm going to actually release the solution for these challenge problems. But there's going to be a challenge problem at the very end of every one of these sessions. Even if there's not that much to cover, I'll come up with something, because you want to practice this as much as possible. Getting your hands dirty in code, that's honestly, there's no better way of actually learning code. You can watch these videos all day long. You gotta write code. You gotta start making the mistakes to understand what it is. But with that said, if you remember my last time I did one of these, I gave you the pseudocode, and I'm going to do the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and give you the pseudocode of what's going to be, we'll say, solution number 2. So we're going to first say, if a variable, call it q, is greater than or equal to 12, then so print q decrementing by 1 until q equals 0. Otherwise, So here's your problem. So if a variable q is greater than or equal to 12, then print q decrementing by 1 until q equals 0. Otherwise, print q decrementing by 1 until q equals 0, ensuring q is printed at least once. Again, everything that I have taught in the previous lessons, they're all fair game. I'm not grading it, so it's really the honor code of what this is really about you learning. So try it, and everything that we've learned is on the table, and as because as I'm talking about decrementing and whatnot, you can kind of get exactly what I'm saying. And if you listen, if something that you don't recognize, go back and listen again. I kind of gave clues on everything on here, but that's it. So try it out. Again, I'm going to put the solution up. This video is going out on Monday. I'm going to put the solution out as a short, and all the solutions will always be shorts. I'll put the solution up on Friday so you can check your work. So that's it. So let's go back and take a look at what we covered in this actually quick lesson. So what did we do? Well, we didn't do as much as we used to, which is probably a good thing, because the fact I actually had one of these videos over an hour long, I am sorry about that. But we talked about the while loop. We talked about the do while loop. Of course, they're kind of the same thing. Of course, the while loop's guaranteed at least 0 times to loop, do whiles at least once. And then we covered the break statement, understanding that break, while it is a statement made to break out of a case in a switch, which we did earlier, it also is there to break out of loops. And I did show that not only does it break out of for loops, it can also break out of while loops, and it can break out of do while. So any type of loops, the break statement will do. That's the 2 uses of a break statement. And for next session, we're going to I had a huge one. I'm cutting these down. We're only going to talk about arrays, which honestly is still, we're only going to scratch the surface. That's going to be your first collection data type. So looking forward to showing you that one. But hopefully you enjoyed this, and hope you enjoy these smaller lessons. If this is something, if you like it like this, drop something down in the comments. I want to make sure any feedback I love hearing, so that I know better ways to actually try to tailor these to make these as enjoyable as possible. But I enjoy having you here. Definitely would like you to join the community, hitting the subscribe, putting any comments that you have, any feedback, anything you'd like to see a little bit different. And if it's more the same, if you like this shorter format, I know I'm running long now, but if you like this shorter format, let me know. And of course, really appreciate a thumbs up, because it definitely helps drive the YouTube algorithm. But until we meet again next week, have a great time and keep coding.